personal encounters with things that are not of this world. People who would know the difference between black ops technology, the current military defense projects that might be secret, and people that would know also who to talk to about these things if they did think it was black ops. But they knew.
Right.
And it was, in my opinion, that video is probably one of the most important videos ever when it comes to extraterrestrial life, or the idea of extraterrestrial life visiting Earth. Because the conversations that I've ever had, that I've always had with rational people, especially rational people who are not obsessed by aliens like I've been my whole life, but rational people who just, oh, I don't know if it's real or not, but where's the evidence? I'm sure there's alien life out there. Has it visited us? Oh, probably not, right? When you see that video and you see those high-ranking military guys, one after another, give these very not just believable, but they're spooky. These are spooky stories because the way they're talking about them, you could see in their face the emotions as they're recounting the sheer, to use a word, alienness of their experience.
Right.
We had never really seen anything like that before. It had always been, well, I guess they probably could be out there, but who knows? When I watched that video, it was a real shift, because it was one of the first things that I ever saw that made me really stop and think. There's part of everybody that doesn't want to get into it. When it comes to a subject, especially an important subject like UFOs, there's a part of everybody that goes, you want to call bullshit right away, because you don't want to be the last guy to call bullshit. You don't want to be the guy who believes, and then it turns into bullshit. Oh, you dummy. You believed it. You were the first guy believing it, man. You want to be the first guy to call bullshit. It's always a way cooler position. And if there was alien life, if there was alien life that had visited Earth, what evidence?
Alle Mann auf Gefechtsstation!
À toutes les forces présentes, capturez cette zone.
Yeah, particularly when it's getting hoovered up by very well-organized
including the Project Blue Book, which was run by Dr. J. Allen Hynek, right?
Well, that was a cover story. The Project Blue Book was really a little office where they were putting things in there and making it sound like they were really investigating. Meanwhile, there was a unacknowledged project, what we call a black project. But the proper name is an unacknowledged special access project, or USAP. And the USAP's running this, have been around since the 40s, very well funded, working on these issues, working on the technology, studying how these things are going from one star system to another. And that's the sort of thing that we've been drilling down on for about 22 years.
So the Project Blue Book that was run by Dr. Hynek, that was his name?
Yeah, Dr. J. Allen Hynek, right. He was an Air Force guy, astronomer that the Air Force engaged to do that. Later, he came out and admitted that that was all just sort of a dog and pony show.
And he also became a huge UFO believer, which is really fascinating, because most of the stories that they investigated in Project Blue Book, he certainly debunked.
Correct.
In fact, instead of being open about the possibilities, they always steered towards debunking it first.
Right. And actually, the big problem
Gegnerische Streitkräfte am Horizont gesichtet.
in Gerald Ford's home district in Michigan, there were a whole dozens of people who saw an extraterrestrial vehicle that was close range, and he went up and investigated and made some reference to it being swamp gas. And Gerald Ford went ballistic because his constituents went ballistic, and Gerald Ford actually into some representatives. Of course, later as president, he never dealt with this issue because basically presidential intelligence doesn't have access to those projects.
When you say that so you're saying that Ford objected because he knew it was an extraterrestrial vehicle?
He knew that some of his constituents who were very credible knew
What's his position?
he was actually Israel as the
Pre-president.
he was in the House of Representatives. He was a congressman before he was vice president and president.
And so he was upset that they were saying that it wasn't a real vehicle. So he clamped down.
Yeah, and actually held a hearing where a lot of people came and gave evidence and information. Washington, I think it was over in Washington. And So, I started as founder of disclosureproject.org, now SeriousDisclosure.com. We began investigating this in 1990. And I'm a trauma doctor, emergency doctor. I was running a very busy ER, raising 4 kids. I got involved with this because I knew about it since childhood. And, I have family. My mom's brother uncle was So I think that what most people don't realize is that inside the intelligence community, the aerospace community, there are a lot of people.
Unser Team hat die Führung übernommen.
About this. Not allowed to talk about it. It was a career ender.
Torpedos auf
That
Steuerbord!
was what we did for disclosure.
Torpedos direkt
Put all
voraus!
those folks together, identify them. So I spent about 10 years identifying who these people were. First I had maybe half a dozen. Now we have about 500.
Who are the most credible people? Just so folks listening to this that haven't watched that video, who are the most credible people?
Well, we're going to have some of them in the film, Sirius. There's like SIRIUS. Sirius is going to have a lot of this information in it, some stuff that's going to blow your mind, including the possibility of an actual body.
À tous les bâtiments. Cible stratégique repérée à cette position.
Military go from to people like
Torpedos voraus!
his crew actually filmed one of these extraterrestrial images. And he looked next to this is an idea that Washington's going. And what Eisenhower said when he said, beware of the military-industrial complex because it's going to get out of control and be a threat to our democracy.
Unser Team hat die Führung übernommen.
Had detailed information of actionable intelligence. Now, when Clinton was president, Gordon Cooper was asked by Secretary of Defense, William Cohen, about this issue. He says, yes, I absolutely verify this, and I'll give you the information where and how it happened. So the Secretary of
Capturez cette zone.
Defense
J'ai besoin d'un appui.
had this information.
Votre tir sur un navire ennemi.
Now, I would not have believed and I was asked as a service, and I did it, left my ER. And I put together I put this briefing together. So I go up there, and here's the CIA, James Woolsey, and wife was there at the time. Sciences. When I was first invited to go up there, I was told they want you to come up here. Access. I have a letter proving this.
President Clinton has been denied access, so they
Right.
want you, a doctor,
Who had a family connection to these programs and then also to information.
and
So-
how did they know about you?
Well, let me finish this other
Okay,
thread,
sure,
and I'll get to
please.
that, because that'll blow your mind. But what happened is, I really thought this was crap. I mean, because when his handler, the CIA director's handler, contacted me, said, "Look, they need you to come up here because they can't find out anything, but they know stuff's going on." Well, I thought they just wanted to pick my brain, sort of spoof these lies. I went up there, and the CIA director.
Katapultjäger in der Luft!
My hands were shaking. Kind of like this 35-year-old guy. And, at the how do we disclose that we have no access to? And I just that's how it's. And so I learned the hard way, the very, very hard way. Later, former head of Army Intelligence, meeting.
Problem gelöst.
And one thing leads to another. So that well, this gets into a discussion, that's complex. But yes. But I think that's the right thing.
Feueralarm.
There are protocols. So the Moody Blues were right when they said thinking is the best way to travel. And there's a component where in executing programmers have to listen to it.
No.
All right, well, hey, all you freaks, listen up and listen up hard. You can develop technologies, and we have these in classified projects now, where you can have what's called a switch that will interface with very intent thought. So it's beyond, forget your iPhone. Now, if you're traveling with a smart system, that's what you're going to use. You use the technologies that are amazing.
Feueralarm!
Lasers going. And so this gets into the whole question of how all the way back from the Vimanas and the Betas to
Problem gelöst.
Really got their attention, and I'm quite convinced that
Unser Sieg ist in Sicht.
one of the projects we're involved with is Disclosure Project, and another one is sort of a citizens diplomacy effort saying, look, since our government is I know I went up to the UN and met with back when Boutros Boutros-Ghali was UN Secretary General and
Hauptturm kritisch beschädigt.
she said, they're not going to let us do this. So I started a citizens diplomacy effort. Said they knew that they didn't understand it. It was sort of past their scientific understanding, but they were very interested.
This is something I hate to interrupt you.
No, please,
This is
go.
something
Yeah.
that we can't really just gloss over. The idea that coherent thought, as you say, intersects with these other levels, these other dimensions that we can't normally access.
Right.
how did you find out about this, and how did you develop the ability
Well, you're
to
putting me in the hot seat early, man.
Well, you have to. When you say that you can do that, I mean, somehow or another, you have to, without getting anybody killed, you have to explain. How'd you figure that out?
I figured it out when I was a teenager. There were a series of experiences I had. I was talking to Thomas Jane about this. And, I had a near-death experience, which was interesting. And an experience that took me into some awareness about the nature of consciousness and the non-locality of mind, and the fact that the mind is actually a singularity, that there's really only one mind, and it's just shining through various individuals, appearing as many. And this experience, although it sounds very spiritual and religious, was very palpable. And I was raised a very devout atheist, so we didn't believe in anything. And so when I realized that this was real, I began to study meditation. And through that, began to have some experiences where I realized this could happen. And I had a contact experience. I was 18, a few months later, in the fall of 2003. And I was doing this, I was meditating, and I was doing what's now called SRB, scientific. Use consciousness to see different places. And of course, Army intelligence, that's experimented for years. Which I know all those guys, SRB. But I was a kid, and I just turned 18, and I was doing this, and suddenly I had this experience where I thought, well, what if I try to go into this?
Alle Mann auf Gefechtsstation!
That experience when I was a kid. Six months earlier when I had this near-death experience. So I did. And then I had an experience where I remotely
Good
saw
luck
things.
and fair seas.
You can see that there was an ET spacecraft out there, and I made contact, and it appeared, and it literally materialized.
How
And
old were you when you did this?
18.
No drugs.
No, I've never done any drugs.
You've
Actually.
never done any drugs?
No,
No psychedelics? Nothing?
never.
Wow. Are you aware of dimethyltryptamine?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I do.
You know, it's supposedly your brain produces it
Right.
when you're in periods of extreme stress or near-death experiences.
Yeah.
And it's also the same chemical that's in ayahuasca, which has been used by indigenous tribes to.
Right. No, this was just
Spiritual
this was a
states.
very natural sort of thing that happened.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is that these people that are having these experiences, they're having a lot of people that are having alien contact experiences. They are all having them in the middle of the night. Most of them are having them at night. And I'm not just saying this in any way.
Mhm.
In fact, I may be possibly enhancing the possibility of people understanding this, or the vehicle. The mind produces this dimethyltryptamine during REM sleep, and it's still a very sketchy thing. We know that the body produces it. We know they believe the pineal gland, which is literally your third eye. Reptiles,
Right.
it does a retina and a corneal gland.
Right.
They believe that's what, but the evidence on it apparently is like really kind of, it's hard to figure out exactly. But they know the body has it. They know it's produced by the liver and the lungs for sure. And this chemical, when you get it and you give it to people that have had UFO abduction experiences, it gives them the exact same experience. It brings them into contact with other beings. The idea that this is just a hallucination because your body has some endogenous chemical in it, and it spikes and stimulates the visual cortex and what have you, and you have this. That is what everyone has always assumed whenever you talk about anything hallucinatory or psychedelic.
Right,
But
right.
what a lot of people haven't taken into consideration is that you're basically a conglomeration of chemicals. Your neurotransmitters, dopamine, serotonin, there's a million different chemicals which, as their levels vary up and down, it drastically changes your reality. Your happiness level, your appreciation, love, oxytocin, all these things proven 100% change your reality. Change the physical reality that you have. And I think for whatever reason, when we think of something in coherent thought can contact other entities. What the fuck are you talking about? That's like the initial, immediate reaction.
Right. Because we've all been missing.
Well, of consciousness itself. I've always tried to how bizarre I don't mean imagination by you're imagining things that aren't there. It's not real. You're playing a game with your mind. What I mean by imagination is
Torpedos direkt voraus!
including the language that we're speaking with right now, the vehicle in which this language is getting delivered through the internet. All of this came from the imagination. Everything. This table came from the imagination. This microphone. Someone thought this shit up, and then all of a sudden it manifested itself in a physical form when they actively created it. That seems so normal to us. It seems so normal. But we're the only fucking animal in the world we know that can do this.
Well, and it goes beyond that, because, you know, Dr. John at Princeton University had the Princeton They had proven that you could set up a number generator machine and put your thought towards it and begin to move, whether it's spitting out zeros or ones, and that there is, in fact, been proven scientifically that the mind is actually operating non-linearly, meaning that it's not limited to space and time in a linear way. And these studies that have been done by Ray, John, and other scientists, very good. I mean, it actually sounds very Vedic in the sense of Buddhist or Vedanta. But did I say that? I'm sorry. I apologize. But the reality is, the world isn't flat, and there's a whole area of physics and science
fire on the enemy warship.
Years that establish all these things as true. It isn't talked about because the high priests of religion and the high priests of science are all opposed to this information coming out.
So the
Unser Team hat die
Torpedos voraus!
If you ask the question, okay, going back to this dinner with the CIA, his wife.
Wasser dringt schnell ein! Torpedos direkt voraus!
Says, how? I didn't know whether to tell her something.
Feueralarm!
And risk losing. I decided if someone's smart enough to ask the question, I'm going to answer it honestly, even though it's going to blow their mind. And so I looked at her, and her husband, the CIA director, sitting next to me, and didn't really understand where she was going. I said, look, take her Milky Way. It's 100,000 light years across. So that 100,000 light years is the distance. That's how far you would go at 186,000 miles a second for 100,000 years, going at that speed. That's just our own galaxy. Now, you take 1% of that, say 1,000 light years, at the speed of your cell phone or radio wave or TV wave or this system we're using right here. For someone from a star system 1% of the way through our galaxy, for them to say, hello, how are you? And for a spacecraft that's at another star system 1,000 light years away, say here Earth, to say, fine, how are you doing? That just took how long? 2,000 years. 1,000 one way and 1,000 another. So the time since the birth of Christ. So the speed of light is too damn slow. And so when you begin to go through what I call the crossing point of light, it's like the sound barrier was a big deal. The biggest deal is the light barrier. And when you go past the light barrier, you're going to cross into these kind of multi-phasic resonant dimensions, part of which hook into the singularity of mind and thought. And actually this film that we're working on, which is the largest documentary in history to my knowledge, Sirius. And you can find out about it at SiriusDisclosure.com. It's been crowdfunded by the public. It's all been funded by people out there, thousands of people. We're going to do a premiere here in L.A. on April 22nd if you want to come. But
I would love to.
Okay, come.
But we can't send things at the speed of light, right? I mean, even saying that.
Beyond the speed of light.
But they can't do that, right? I mean, you can't send information in the form of light yet, can you?
No, but fiber optics and things of this sort.
But does that move at the speed of light?
Pretty much.
Yeah?
But
Okay.
but what I'm saying is that if you go beyond the speed of light,
Right.
it's a whole new physics.
Of course.
Okay, so that's what if these craft are here, and now I have over 4,000 cases where they planted it, and we have evidence. I have 3,500 pilot cases. We have over 500 whistleblowers, top secret military corporate people, and I have 110 of them on digital videotape. Although nobody really wants to see it, but I have it. So the question is, if they're here, how the hell they get here? Well, they're not using an Exxon Jet A fuel, and they're not using a solid rocket booster, and they're not using an ion drive or anything linear. So you have to begin to have this question. The CIA director's wife asked me this. I told her about that they had technologies that interface with thought and consciousness. And that sounded may sound as bizarre to people now, but if you took your cell phone and showed Thomas Jefferson your smartphone, they would think it was magic. If you went to Salem, Massachusetts a couple hundred years ago, you'd be burned at the stakes of a witch.
Yeah,
so the
question.
point is that people have to have some humility about the fact that humans are one half of one step out of the jungle technologically. And we're only 100 years into anything resembling real technology. So when we're dealing with civilizations that are 10 to the 6th to 10 to the 7th, 100,000 to a million years ahead of us, we have to have some humility about what that might look like. And so when I explained this to the wife of the CIA director, she just looked at me and said, I thought it had to be something like that. I mean, people are ready to actually understand this. Not everyone has to be retarded on this. And I tell folks that it's what's a shame in my mind is that our civilization has been exploring these sort of what they call borderland sciences for 100 years. It's all been kept very secret or debunked or ridiculed. And it's actually holding us back, not only socially, spiritually, but environmentally and in every other way. Because this nexus of where you have these advanced trans-dimensional physics come together, that's how you're propelling through one point in space to another across galaxies. It's also how we're going to be able to run this planet's energy grid without a grid, where every home, business, and car can pull energy out of the fabric of space-time through this kind of physics. And so there's this nexus where electromagnetism and trans-dimensional physics comes together, and then you cross a little deeper, and that's where you get into the science of consciousness. And this becomes a very, very complex issue for most people because it's new to them. But once you understand the fundamental science behind it, it's really very simple.
What we need to understand is that no one 200 years ago even thought of a camera. 200 years ago, when you wanted to picture something, you had to draw it. And there was, the idea of a camera was the idea of a movie, the idea of sending a video on your phone to your friend. You could take a video of you here right now and send it to a friend, and they would get it almost instantly. That's just a tiny blip in human history, a 200-year blip in human history, from riding horses to sending video through the internet.
100 years.
Yeah.
And
the people that would have never seen it coming, and if technology, what it does, accelerates exponentially, what we're dealing with 1,000 years from now, 10,000 years from now, is completely unknown. We live in an era of there's a lot of rocks out there, and they fly around. There's a shed, and they can ruin civilization for a little bit. But there might be civilizations that take place. There could be a civilization that's 2 to 3 billion years ago. I mean, we really don't know. We have no idea.
And I have nothing to say to those folks except to say, get over it. But somewhat outrageous. A little bit outrageous. Haven't heard anything yet.
You're on the edge.
Yeah,
I'm ready.
All right.
I'm strapped in.
So, but if you really look at it, my grandmother was born in post-Reconstruction in the South.
Problem gelöst.
Worked on it. By coming into for 15 years into having
It was less than 50 years that someone used an airplane to drop a nuclear weapon.
Right. And see, this is this is an existential threat. But as an emergency doctor, I used to have, and it's dangerous to yourself or others. And what I found is that if you just take a step back and look at humanity through the eyes of existential, we become dangerous to ourselves, but we're also dangerous to others. And moreover, we become an existential threat to the biosphere of the Earth, where we're killing the oceans, the atmosphere, and everything else. All this is unnecessary.
Feueralarm!
And basically saying, we're not going to put up with this anymore. And I think it isn't about anything violent. It's about saying we need to just move forward because Washington isn't going to do it. My office company, Northrop Grumman isn't. Northrop going to do it. It's you and me and the other people out there who get.
Operation Starfish, aware of that in 1962, where they launched a nuclear bomb in space. They blew up a nuclear bomb in space.
Well, actually, one of our
Brutjäger in der
witnesses,
Luft.
Colonel Dietrichson, was with the Atomic Energy Commission, which became the DOE. Air Force colonel. And his responsibility was over all the facilities, but he knew of a program. Not only for the weapon and detonated on the moon. And when they actually worked on this, and when it went exo-atmospheric, left our atmosphere, it was intercepted by an extraterrestrial vehicle and basically dematerialized, was taken out. And he knew had personal knowledge of this. So
they had actually tried to do this.
They actually finished it, and it was on its way to the moon. With some of these guys, and I still work with a lot of folks from the agency and the space industry. There's
Hat der Brutjäger zerstört. Gegnerischer Kreuzer zerstört. Unser Feueralarm!
You're a grown man, you should never use a word for it.
I don't. This is what they call it.
They have access to technology and they use the word for it. They can't be trusted.
You can.
They're held back.
Actually, I'll tell you a lot of
Problem gelöst.
the secrecy and
But there's not much system.
a lot of the reports we do are top secret guys. And she custom Pentagon papers, silver case, and all this. I got agreements with the
Feueralarm!
Concentrate fire on that target.
And every one of these people had been inquiring about this issue and had been denied access. One of them, who I will not name, I learned for my briefing with him. I had given him a document that's going to be in this web series. And the document together for
You put together a briefing for President Obama.
yeah, it
They
was-
asked you to?
someone senior involved with his team. And so, Jesus Christ.
How weird must that be to be the president and then to get in there and go, okay, what the fuck is going on with
Yeah,
UFOs?
the emperor has no clothes.
Hey, call that doctor. What's that guy's name?
Yeah.
Virginia? Dr.
Kevorkian.
Greer? Go get that doctor.
So no, but what happened is that and it's going to blow people's mind when they see this. It's a National Reconnaissance Office. NROs, that's all the top secret sites. And over their headquarters it says, "We own the night." And that's their motto. We own the night. It's pretty
awesome.
Yeah, it's pretty spooky. Yeah, but so these are the kind of dudes I work with all the time. And what happened is that one of these compartments, it has a whole distribution list: cosmic ops, magic ops, da 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 da. all kinds of it. I said about 20 of them. And this is a document that was not declassified. It was given to me by a source that I won't talk about. And this admiral recognized one of those compartments, so he contacted them. And on the other end of the phone, he said, look, I'm so-and-so. And they said, yes, sir, we know who you are. And he says, well, I want to be read into, which is military speak for briefed, on this project. And they said, sir, we cannot discuss this project with you. We don't have anything on this. This is really me. I'm the head of intelligence for this. And they said, sir, we cannot discuss this with you.
So who the fuck knows? Like, how many people are there? Have you determined that? Do you know?
I know some of them. It started out much smaller. Escapade back in the 40s.
Does it have a
So
It's Majestic 12, right?
yes, but the document as of the 90s that I have still had JIC on it. And so a lot of these programs,
Unser Sieg ist in Sicht.
multiple generations. Now, if I understand, it's a committee of 200 or 300 folks. Very
Hauptturm, begnädigt!
You're going to have access to this to understand what Rumsfeld said is true. The day before 9/11, this is going to be in the film, where he said,
Feueralarm!
out of the department, there's 2.3 trillion, not billion. Now, we found out there's somewhere between 100
Problem gelöst!
And so Sheehan and I looked at this attorney. I said, look, if all these people who have a need to the Constitution and change the right to be deceived, what have you, I'm going to declare all those projects rogue, a priori, illegal. Therefore, anyone who signed a security contract, I'm going to unilaterally remove something. Well, if you listen, these projects, Lockheed, Northrop, SAIC, the CIA, you do not have to go by the secrecy. Because if they are denying access, those projects, therefore those security oaths have no enforceability. Now, whether or not you have the courage to come forward is another question. But what I was very glad to be able to do between the early 90s and 2001 with the Disclosure Project is to pull together the people who did have the courage. And they're still coming forward. We have people who are in these projects who give us information, intelligence. And it's really a citizen's effort. I mean, I've never been in the government my entire life, but I think this is what you have an idea, and if the idea picks up steam and people see the reason for it. But the other thing is to do it in a way where people feel supported. And that's why we did this. I mean, I think in the initial batch of people came forward, it was about 7.
One of the things I always want to get into people's heads when they start talking about the government or the people in charge or, you know, those in the know, the idea that they're exchanging information has been proven false time and time again.
Right.
Not only that, what's really blown me away lately is finding out that, especially in this supposed patriotic time of war, we have government factions that don't like other government factions.
So it's always been that way.
I was blown away when Petraeus was outed by the FBI. I'd be like, are you fucking crazy? Like, that is nuts. You're talking about the head of the CIA, and the FBI is spying on him over an affair, and you're going to bring down this beloved national hero.
Stupid.
Unbelievably stupid, but also unbelievably revealing about how partitioned our government truly is, and how difficult it would be to get access to some critical information if this information is in any way deemed too sensitive or too controversial or too paradigm shifting for average eyes.
Well, let's make this very simple. If you acknowledge that the UFOs are there, they're real, if you ask that question, we have the answers for it. And if the public knows that, then they know we don't need ExxonMobil, we don't need oil, gas, coal, nuclear power, or a centralized utility grid.
Well, that's assuming, though, that
And
most people believe that the UFOs are real. Because
yeah,
I don't,
about 50 to 60% do now.
I think they say that. I think they say 50,
Well,
but I think they most of the time will look for terrestrial explanations. Most rational people.
Well, no, actually, there was just a poll that came out a month ago, and there's actually 43% of the public believe that extraterrestrial life has been on the planet and is here now.
51% believe that the Earth is less than 10,000 years old. Did you know that?
Yeah, well, I don't know if it's that high.
51%.
I heard it was about a quarter of the population. So
Gallup poll, I think 2010, they got 51%.
the Flat Earth Society still has a lot of numbers, I guess. But here's the bigger issue: is that if you bring this information out, and let's say that one of the objectives of what I'm working on now.
I mean, let me just clear that up.
Yeah.
46% of the creationist view of
Well, but of the creationist view, not all those people think
Right.
the world is 10,000 years old. I think that number is only about
10,000.
15%.
Americans believe creationists believe that God created humans in their present form
Rendons-leur la
at
vie
time
dure.
within the last 10,000
Afin de
Oh, God, you're going to make me move to Norway. Anyway,
Canada's a good choice, dude. Canada's right there, and they're badass.
I know.
Just,
Hey, you know,
but just to throw some salt on your idea that
Please
it makes
throw
sense.
all you want.
I mean, look, I told you that I'm a huge fan of the UFO experience. I mean, I really want it to be real. But just because 47% or whatever the fuck think, 46% think that the Earth is
Right.
less
No,
than
you're
10,000
right. Yeah. But the evidence speaks for itself. And I told someone once.
But
they
does
say,
it?
well,
Does it? I mean, what
Yes.
percentage? Okay, let's just be honest, or rather, let's open this. What percentage of UFO sightings are real? What percentage are totally made up, and what percentage are a confusion?
But that's not the metric we're using. We're going by government release documents. We're going by people who are insiders who have actually handled extraterrestrial bodies.
So when
We're
you're
dealing
talking
with-
about
we're talking-
experiences, you're talking about experiences from people who are 100% credible, bulletproof, eyewitness
I mean,
testimony.
and only that, but if you have the former Minister of Defense of Canada say that he checked out with the U.S. Air Force General, that in fact there was an accident that happened in New Mexico in 1947, which we call Roswell, and that what Colonel Corso wrote in his book, The Day After Roswell, was substantially correct. And this is the Honorable Paul Hellyer, and he and I did a press conference in Toronto a couple of years ago, and he is completely correct. So the question is, and the same thing happened with Five-Star Admiral Morgan Morton. I mean, here he was the Minister of Defense, and he found out after the fact that in fact an extraterrestrial vehicle had landed at the Bentwaters Air Force Base in Rendlesham Forest in England. And we have multiple disclosure project witnesses who were there. And it came out recently that the Ministry of Defense in Great Britain released the documents on that where they had physical evidence that this thing actually did land and left physical traces, et cetera, and so on. So I tell people, usually the New York Times say, well, we need 2 or 3 corroborating witnesses to something, particularly 3 if it's a very controversial story. I say, yes, but the Disclosure Project has hundreds of these sort of people, thousands. People seeing
They
something in
mean
the sky.
witnesses per event. They don't mean like overall.
Yeah, but we have an event. We have multiple ones for this landing at Rendlesham. We have multiple ones from the Minot, North Dakota event.
How many do you have?
Where there will be some of them, 4, 5, 6 at one event.
And they all have the
Very
same
credible
story.
military people. And so why isn't the mainstream news put together this amount of information? And the question is, how free is our market? And how free is our market? Because I think there's more corruption than people can imagine. And I'm not a conspiracy theory person. I deal
Wait a
with...
minute. Yes, you are.
No, I'm not.
How dare you?
No,
How
I'm
dare
not.
you? I'm not. But just be honest.
I just don't like
you're
theories.
Okay. You're a
I deal with-
conspiracy
I deal
person
with-
then. But
No,
you're
no.
dealing about UFO conspiracy.
Well, it's like, was the mafia conspiracy of a criminal enterprise? Yes, but
Yes.
it's not a theory; it's a fact.
Okay,
And
so
so
you're a
there's a big
conspiracy
difference
guy
between
then? obviously, you're talking about a UFO conspiracy, an energy conspiracy. You're talking about suppressing information.
People conspire in their own interest, and if you're
I don't know. I know you don't like conspiracy theorists, but okay.
Well, no, I just don't. I think the term is used. I think it's misused.
It is misused,
and I think that just
it's weighted, it's loaded.
It's
right?
a loaded thing,
yes.
And it's like it's like when Larry King asked me, "Do you believe?" I said, "Well, I believe in a lot of things that you can't see and prove." But if I have 4,000 cases where these things have landed, if I have hundreds of photographs and videotapes, if I have dozens of top secret guys who can corroborate this, why is that a belief? I mean, you believe in God and some other things, but I mean, this is not a matter of belief.
Most people believe, and I'll quote Neil deGrasse Tyson, who said these pieces of evidence.
That's right.
But what physical evidence do you have that goes along with eyewitness testimony that you believe is the most compelling?
Well, I think
The ship is on fire!
it needs to be seen if it's going to be what we think it is, and we're going to know. Institute that acquired a small
This is in the trailer for Sirius. I've seen this little skeleton that's X-rayed.
and CAT scan. We're now doing the genetic work up at the top university.
Pull that up, Brian, because it's very freaky. People on Ustream and Vimeo can see this. I'm excited about this movie. Now, who found this alien being? Where did they acquire this thing? Okay.
So I'm still waiting to see this person.
Because it might be
No, I know. All I'm saying is that it is an organic being.
It is an organic being.
It is. The CAT scan shows lungs.
Enemy cruiser sighted.
It's at least several years old. It's only 6 inches old. So the
How do you prove that from bone density?
you look at the epiphyseal plates and the calcium. In other words,
right, but
if
that's
you
humans, isn't it? Why you're dealing with a completely alien species?
No. I'm saying if you were to go back, if you're going to assume that it's not ET, then you look at it. What would this be? Okay, so you have to go through an algorithm and it's a diagnosis of exclusion because they have medicine. Because if it's not a miscarried or aborted fetus, which is the size of what this would be about 20 years old, it's not a fossil. It's material and DNA material. We've already extracted. We clipped one of the ribs of the internal marrow, and so this is being processed right now as we speak, literally.
So if it was a human, it would be several years old. So that proves that it's not a human.
There is no form of dwarfism. According to the world's expert in this area, that would explain something of this age, and also that has these abnormalities. If you look at the skull, if you look at the fact that it has 10 ribs, there are no genetic syndromes where you have 10 ribs.
Have you seen this thing in person?
I was the third person to handle it. And I did I didn't say an autopsy on it, but I did the tests on it.
How long had it been dead?
We didn't get enough material from. We didn't want to damage this little thing too much. So the carbon dating on it would be the next step. We wanted to be sure we had enough genetic material, and if we had to go back, we didn't want to. So we're working a scientific algorithm on this. This is actually the people, the public, who's serious, or the reason why we were able to do all these studies.
How is this thing preserved?
But it was found in a very, very dry desert area, and it's just very desiccated. It's very dried out, and it was not in any sort of preservative. And now it died of air cell behind your ear. And it's a little asymmetrical in the jaw, and the right humerus is fractured through and through. And it happened at Mortimer. We think it was the fatal blow to this particular being. Now, what is this being? When you look at it, almost every scientist that has seen it goes, looks like an ET, but we don't know. All I'm going to say is that one of those is human genome compared to, which is what we're doing right now. And we have all the literature that the world's expert in skeletal abnormalities. The expert.
The enemy team has taken the lead.
Torpedoes, dead ahead.
Has ever been seen.
Torpedoes, dead ahead.
The question then becomes, what is it? Now, it turns out it was found in an area of that reports of these objects.
Famous for
Very
UFO
famous.
sightings.
Yes, very famous. And also in these remote native these very small beings, bright humanoid type beings.
Isn't that also the area where they constructed the VLT telescopic array? One of the
Fighter airborne.
large telescope, I believe.
I think there are, this is very dark. And we also know one of our
Enemy destroyer sunk.
border that's not too far. To track ET craft and hit those weapons, and one was downed and crashed. Majestic. But I mean, you know, if
The ship is on fire.
it's kind of almost not the correct even way of framing it is to say its own funding mechanism, its own navy. I'm quoting almost exactly. It was a great speech by this senator, and it's because he had run across. So the question is, who's observation, congressional oversight, or it's also a threat to our security in the world. If multiple military insiders that we have been attempting to target.
The ship is on fire.
Turn the Earth into a pink mist floating through space in a nanosecond, and we're there firing at them. Why? You know, I mean, this is.
But you're convinced that this happened? Absolutely.
I absolutely know it
Yeah.
is, because I have too many insiders who've been present when we've done this sort of weaponization of electromagnetic signals.
What about disinformation? Do you
Most of the information out there is disinformation.
right?
I would say
Do you
90.
believe any of it's ever hit you? Like this might be disinformation?
Oh yeah, I have. No, not when
No.
I'm telling you.
No.
But have I ever been caught flat-footed? Almost. But you know, we're very careful, and I have to say, you know, as a doctor who got into this sort of accidentally, and then I was tutored and mentored by some really good people in the military and the intelligence community who wanted me to do this. And one of them is still at the CIA. He's a PhD guy. And he says, you know, someone needs to do this because the politicians are never going to do it, and these big corporations are absolutely not going to let it out. And this was back in the 90s, and I said, well, what am I supposed to do? And, you know, one of the interesting things, after we put this briefing together from Clinton, you know, Lawrence Rockefeller, I put the concept of the best available evidence in all these cases, and then Lawrence Rockefeller hosted Bill and Hillary Clinton at the Rockefeller Ranch. They had me out there shortly before that. And Mr. Rockefeller was the white hat in the family who wanted to end the secrecy, unlike some of his family. And he said to me, one night I was out on his porch on a deck in the Grand Tetons at the JY Ranch, and he said, we really need you to hurry up and do this. And I said, oh, Lawrence, I'm just a doctor in North Carolina. I'm working in an ER, you know. He says, no, you have to do it. I said, no, Lawrence, you have to get these guys to do it. He says, they will never do it. And I said, Lawrence, for God's sakes, you're old, you're rich, and you're a Rockefeller. He says, no. He says, the implications of this are so vast and so profound that no aspect of life will be unchanged when it comes out. I said, yes, Lawrence, that's why it's secret. And then he said to me, well, that means those folks don't know. And then, you know, before that, shortly after that, and I had this, and one of the president's friends came to my house, and this was a very disturbing story. I'm sitting at the table with my 4 kids, and
General Quarters.
this man, who's very close friends with the president, Clinton, says to me, well, you know, they're very supportive of what you've recommended in this white paper. I said, great. He says, but they're not going to do it. I said, why not? He says, they're convinced that if the president steps into this too hard, he'll end up like Jack Kennedy. And I started laughing, thinking, what a load of nonsense. And he don't say this in front of the kids. So we went to the library in my house after dinner. And I said, what are you talking about, Kevin? And he said, they really think this is too dangerous. I said, well, what am I supposed to do? What am I, chopped liver? And he looked at me and he says, yeah, you're expendable. So I have always viewed myself as the kind of the throwaway guy in all of this. In the sense that these guys, you know, the folks who have enormous political power, corporate power, even the ones who support this very avidly, there's a lot of them, they don't want to stick their necks out.
They killed Bill Clinton. If Bill Clinton came out and said that we may have evidence that there might be some intelligent life out there in the universe.
Because, you know, it's like the R.E.M. song, it's the end of the world as we know it. Because if that happens, when that happens...
people would panic.
No. The public isn't going to panic over this unless it's couched in a stupid way.
Well, the public definitely will panic if the president comes out and says there's UFOs and then he gets whacked. That would be panic.
Yeah, but there's a bigger problem. If the president doesn't have control access to these projects, he didn't want to talk about it because then it shows the fact that our democracy has been sidelined, as Eisenhower warned us. I mean, the reason Eisenhower was not anti-military. He was a 5-star general.
For folks who don't know this story, just fill people in on the speech that he made as an active sitting president leaving.
Yeah, the last day of his presidency,
Yeah.
he basically said, beware the military-industrial complex. And this is...
The dangers.
And he said the dangers of this... Now, the reason he said that is that between 1954 and 1961, when he was leaving office, it was on his watch that the military-industrial complex reorganized under the Rockefeller Commission in 1956, and Eisenhower lost complete control over these projects. I have a lieutenant colonel who was on the plane with Jack Kennedy flying to Berlin when he gave the Iowa Berlin speech. And Jack Kennedy was talking about this UFO issue, but he turned to this guy who was kind of the chief steward for Air Force One, who I know, and he said, matters out of my hands, and I don't know why. And this guy was stunned. In fact, I'll tell you, this is kind of a gruff Air Force guy who was crying as he told the story, because it hit him that there had been sort of a silent coup d'etat on this issue. And one of the problems in Washington when I bread and circus, where they just want people to be entertained with shock and thrill. The question becomes, how are you going to get this story out? And that's why, I mean, a few years ago I left this, which was a
enemy battleship sighted.
Because I mean, I really love taking care of, you know, real emergencies and trauma.
How long
And you know, the problem that came for me, the world's in an emergency. So I said, I'm an emergency doctor, and I know an emergency vaccine one, and we're in deep trouble. And so someone has to do this. But before I did that, what you have to understand is I went to everyone I could. I mean, I went to these powerful people. I went to the UN. I went to the British government, the Ministry of Defense. And basically, none of the evidence was all true, frankly. This is what people need to understand. There was no laughter in the room. They took it very seriously. But they didn't want to stick their necks out. And a friend of mine who's a big business guy, he said, well, you know, the way the world works now, everyone wants to be first to be second when it's something
I've always felt that something along the lines of alien contact, if they did have information, there's no reason to let people know unless it's unavoidable. I always felt like unless they were just going to try to do some damage control and redefine what's happening, I wouldn't think that they would ever come out about it. It just doesn't seem like it would be something that would be advantageous to just start telling people about UFOs. The idea is always that the government is our daddy, and then our government's looking at it. It's time and time again to that's horseshit, and that's not really what's going on.
But my military advisor made the point years ago that because so many people, between 5 and 10% of the public have seen one of these objects, many of them very close range.
Let's get back to that, because this is what we talked about before when we got onto this, people who think the Earth is 10,000 years old. I think most of what people see is bullshit. I think most... Yeah,
no question about that.
Most sightings... I did a show, and it was a hidden camera game show where we put a send them out onto the street. And they didn't know what they had to do until they got there. And one of them we said, okay, see that camera over there? That works for you. There was a big news camera. You're a news reporter. And there was just a UFO sighting right above Hollywood Boulevard. The problem is, the witness took off. So you need to grab someone that wasn't there. Witness. Tell them exactly what you need to tell them to get them to do this. Get them to lie on camera. Then you need to get them to tell you that they were abducted and probed. And I'm serious. And we got people to do it like that. It was easy.
No, I have no doubt. But
people are so full of shit.
Yeah, you can always do that. But I'm talking about
high-level military.
And the residual. For example, we have multiple pilots. This is one of the great cases we have, by the way, the Japan Airlines case over Alaska.
Requesting assistance.
The guy who was in charge of investigations for the FAA, third from the top during the Reagan era, he actually left that agency and brought the originals with him.
Enemy battleship detected.
The radar tracings of this thing, it was the size of like 10 747s moving in a non-linear civilian radar, which was on military radar. They scrambled F-16 jets. It was on their radar. 47 pilot has testified to it, and we have all of that.
Enemy battleship detected.
I've heard of this.
All right. So this guy came forward. He says, I'm one of these high-level government officials who actually has seen all this and has handled it. So when you pull all that together, and then of course there will be events like this thing that happened in Phoenix, where the governor of Arizona, Mike Simonton, came out later. At the time he ridiculed it, but he had actually seen it. Came out later, 10 years later, in 2007, said, serious saw it, and it was photographed, and it was on radar, and there were very trained people. So you have to ask the question. And physics that are inferred or articles of belief. This is not just someone on Hollywood. So a lot of this is what's going to be in the film. Seriously, what I said to people is that doesn't exist. It does exist. But I agree with you. There are a lot of people who see
military aircraft.
Or it'll be the other part. There are a lot of things.
The ship is on fire!
And there are the ones that are ETVs. And then there are...
Hold below the waterline. We're flooding quickly.
If people think that propulsion in the system is stopped...
Enemy battleship sighted.
Engine circa...
Mine is, because I'm a man, okay, and I don't drive
penetration.
a sissy hybrid
Yeah,
vehicle.
there you go.
Problem
I'm driving
solved, sir.
makes no noise.
1,000 horsepower electric one. Yeah, good.
1970s in my life.
Yeah. Well, no, but I mean, and the jet engine. It was flying around jet, so I came out here from DC. That's 1930s.
Right.
Rockets, 1940s. Werner von Braun. Do people really think there have been no breakthroughs in
Fighter destroyers.
Well, I'm
propulsion
sure
since the 40s?
people absolutely know that we've been working on things like that. But to bring up what you brought up earlier about the governor of Phoenix, just to point out that the governor of Arizona, the governor of Alaska, Sarah Palin, is one of those people that believe the Earth is less than 10,000 years old. So just because you're a governor or something doesn't mean you're on the ball. And second of all, I had friends that were in Phoenix, and one of them, very credible guy, told me
All
he saw
stations
some
retreat.
giant black
Retreat
triangle
now. All
flying
stations
motionless
retreat.
over the sky. He said it was bigger than several football fields.
All stations retreat.
He said everyone in his neighborhood was shit.
Fighter destroyer.
It was enough to me that I would go, wow, there's too many people that saw something. You attribute certain things to mass hysteria, but that was one of them that I found to be very strange. But I never heard of photographs. You say photographs.
Oh, we have amazing photographs and videos. They're going to be in the files.
You don't have them anywhere else.
No. They're out there. Dr. Lynn Katai, who's a medical doctor, also took some of them. There's other video.
Photos of the Phoenix crafts.
Yes.
So what should we, if we want to look for the show right now?
Main turret critically damaged.
Victory is in sight. Destroy an enemy battleship. Victory is in sight.
I've never heard there's been photographs of
Oh, yeah.
these things.
Yeah.
What does the photo show?
It shows exactly what people described as formation of lights that were moving together in a massive sort of V formation.
Right, and the government said
Later,
we're in Phoenix. Did you see it? What did you see?
what you just described.
Now
Why was I there?
Why were you
That's
there?
another. Yeah.
Did you get your spider call? The Batman, whatever fucking thing, a UFO just appears over your house, like the bat sign. Remember when he's in trouble, we need to send Batman. Is that what they do?
Right. No, they don't. I was actually there in a digital lab to put together.
Coincidentally.
Well, not coincidentally. To put together the best photos and videos to give to Congress that I was briefing in April of '97. So in March of '97, I'd gone there, and there was a guy who had a digital laboratory who said, look, we'll let you use our equipment and assemble this, and we'll help you. And he'd worked a lot with the military. And so I had collected photos and videos from all over the world and governments from all over the world, which we call the best available evidence. And I was putting it together because in April, we were holding a closed briefing for members of Congress who wanted to know. And that's when people like Congressman Dan Burton, who was chairman of the House Government Reform and Oversight Committee, came. A lot of other Vice President's office and whatnot. So I was there when that happened, and someone came running into the lab saying, my God, while we're here there's this going on. And it turned out it was on the news that night in Phoenix. Now, interestingly, the national news didn't pick up on it until June. This happened in March, which is very interesting. Why did that get held back? But, and so there were so many people who saw it, and this was huge, whatever this object was. It was not the size of like a 747. A 747, you probably could put dozens of them inside the volume of this thing. It was huge.
I found it interesting that the stories were very similar. It's one of the things that I found most interesting. I watched some stuff online, and then when I spoke to my friend who lives in Phoenix, and he told me what he saw, I was like, wow, you're talking about like at least 6 or 7 people that are telling the exact same story of seeing this exact same sort of thing. Now, these are the images that you're talking about. These are the whatever the red lights that are in the sky. I think the video is probably more impressive, being that the video shows these things essentially hover for a long period of time, and much longer than really should be attributable to parachutes and flares. It doesn't really make any sense, because parachutes and flares, they don't really move that slow. When you watch a guy jump out of a plane with a parachute, the parachutes, they slow your fall down, but they don't make you suspend.
There's a good photograph of it. No, and we know how those kind of flares appear. But the people who were directly under it, and it moved not just over the part of Phoenix, it moved all the way from outside Flagstaff through the valley and then down towards Tempe.
Now, how did
And
you
then
know about it? You were there working. Did you hear about it? What
there was a
happened?
guy that ran into the lab and who had actually been in the military. He said, "You wouldn't believe what's going on." So, yeah, I was there that night. And
What year was this?
1997. March of 97.
Yeah,
Now, what's equally interesting, if you look at this, now the Belgian Air Force cooperated with me very, very nicely back in the early 90s and late 80s. You may have remembered there was this wave of things that happened in eastern Belgium, where there were these massive triangles that were about 800 feet on each side that were photographed, radar traced, chased by F-16s, and we have all this. And the head of the Belgian Air Force actually showed the radar of one of these objects going from hover to several thousand miles per hour straight up into space, way outside the envelope of any normal conventional propulsion system.
They have a video of this.
Radar of it, and we have this. So the question becomes, how many of these cases do you need to have before you say there's something out there? And I think this is what the problem is that on this
battle starts.
The ridicule around it and the disinformation and the crazy stories that are out there is what dominates. The serious, pun intended perhaps, the serious stuff really gets left on the cutting room floor by most movie directors and media and even on the internet. It's very hard. And I think to pick your way through it's very difficult. What I've tried to do, and it's not that I've done a perfect job of it, but remember, we've never been funded. We're all volunteer effort. And so what we've tried to do is get people who have the really good stuff from governments come forward and share it. And this is why, when the Space Agency of France released a lot of their documents after I was having some meetings in France and with some of the senior.
You can't say it both ways. It's either France or France.
Yes.
You gotta pick.
Well,
Pick one.
it was France when I was there, and when it's here, it's France.
There you go.
And there's an admiral that works with us in France, who's a wonderful guy, and he's an MD and a PhD and an admiral, and he knows all this is very real, and so eventually the French government really, I believe, it's about
All forces, provide cover for that target.
On all of this, and now since the Disclosure Project launched 10 or 12 years ago, there are 14 countries who opened up their files. Now, of course, the United States isn't, because the United States is managed differently on this issue. It's a compartmented, unacknowledged,
And the
special
former
access
Soviet Union has actually been pretty open more recently, in more recent times about the possibility.
When it first fell apart, not so much now, but when it first fell apart, we have a great dossier of KGB cases and files, and also military. And in fact, some of the cosmonauts had encounters with these. I pulled together an
Enemy cruiser.
estimates of Edgar Mitchell to have a meeting out here in California. So there are some really solid cases.
Does Edgar Mitchell claim to have had a personal experience?
No. That this is all very real, and he did come with me. I invited him to the briefing we set up for the head of intelligence for the Joint Chiefs of Staff.
Target position.
I think it was very interesting. At that level were shaken to their foundations because they concluded this was all real, but when they made images, and so this brings up this question.
Enemy battleship sighted.
And this exactly goes back to Eisenhower's warning, but we're 50 years into that era,
Enemy destroyer
and so half a
detected.
century later,
Enemy cruiser
as big of
detected.
a screw up as it was in 1961 when Eisenhower warned us about it, it's 10 times worse than that now. And someone said that the way we change the dynamic on this is that the people lead the leaders have to follow. We do the disclosure. We bring out these technologies. We set up teams to make contact, and we just bypass it.
Enemy cruiser detected.
The evidence that you have, this
Enemy battleship detected.
of this alien life. Before that, this is a more recent thing. This is fairly recent, right? Before that, what was the most compelling piece of physical evidence?
I would have to say that it's these really well-documented, complex cases that involve documents, radar cases with photographs, and multiple corroborating credible witnesses such as
What about
pilots.
landing sites with
Oh yeah, I mean we do, and I actually have been given materials from where the sites are very anomalous. A great case that's in the French files that they released.
All stations reporting the position of a strategic target.
Release was the Provence case when one of these objects landed in a lavender field.
Must have smelled awesome.
Yeah, well, it was a commercial lavender farm, and so cool. And it was wee hours of the morning, and this thing lands. The farmer comes out, and it's this disc-shaped craft.
How large?
I think it was
Concentrate fire on the enemy warship.
range, and there were these little beams outside. This sounds crazy, like some out of science fiction.
Enemy
How
battleship
little? Like a little
detected.
guy?
No,
Little
no,
6-inch
these were,
guys?
from what I remember, like 4 feet, 5 feet, that range. And then, but it left this anomalies, electromagnetic, a sort of radiation into the soil. And this was actually studied by the French government, concluded to be an absolutely real case, just like the
Enemy
Ben
cruiser detected.
Royal Air Force base case in England was. So these sort of landing cases that have also now, at the time, there weren't many people coming forward, corroborating the UK and France, but the United States is still a black hole.
And we're gonna play your trailer for
Okay.
the upcoming film series. You got it pulled up, Brian? Is it queued all the way through? 'Cause
Here we sit, 12, the world still burning oil and gas and coal, when we have
ship is on
had
fire.
all the information we need.
Dr. Stephen Greer is absolutely a hero.
Councils of government, we must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military industrial complex.
You know, hundreds of billions of dollars, the public would be a little annoyed.
All right, sit down and shut up.
I was told to pray, not to meditate. I was told to talk, not to listen.
Concentrate fire on
I'm
that
learning
target.
to listen.
Primary purpose is train
Problem
people
solved, sir.
to understand
Hull breach. Taking on water quickly.
I don't give a goddamn what anybody else says about
The
it.
enemy
I
team
saw
is
it.
taking the lead.
You can tell. I can look at it like you're doing craft too tight. And I was a part of the United States Air Force.
The enemy team is taking the lead.
A particular force of gravity. When we look at our data, we lost 7% weight.
We now have the technology to take ET home.
Consciousness is at once the most familiar thing to us and the most mysterious.
It doesn't take much effort. You can just clear your mind.
People are afraid of looking at technology.
Paul Brown stuff got basically suppressed for many years.
He got murdered.
The problem is not proving that UFOs exist. It's when you begin to expose the energy and propulsion systems behind how they're getting here.
that little thing freaked me out.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, you know, I don't mean to sound callous, but being a doctor, I'm seeing so many worse things. But it's actually
Well,
fascinating.
that's fascinating. I mean, it
Yeah.
freaked me out. Not that it's a dead body. I've seen
yeah.
dead things. It freaked me out that might be a life form. By the way,
Well,
you
it was a life form. We know for a fact it was a life form. What it was is what we're investigating. And I think that one of our witnesses who was on a retrieval team of retrieving extraterrestrial bodies from craft that we had targeted, has talked about the fact that there are many different species that have been cataloged over the years. And at one point, I think it was the late 60s, like 68 or 69 or something in that range. If you look at space and look at the stars, probably every stable star system has planets around it they're discovering. And there's the likelihood that there's an enormous diversity of life out there is a statistical certainty. Even the conventional astronomers and the Drake formula will support that. The question is, have they gotten here? Well, most probably wouldn't be able to, just like we weren't for thousands and thousands of years. But there's such hubris to think that, we're at the pinnacle of technology on Earth in 2013. We're not. I think that when you begin to look at the progression of technology, once you reach a breakout point, in fact, most of the big breakthroughs in technologies, no one knows about. They exist, but they're in a classified project. That's, I think, as big or a bigger story than the ET story, is the fact that there is a cabal of, as I said, sociopathic, misanthropic folks who have decided their macroeconomic grip on power needs to be maintained through this ruthless secrecy.
Let's get to
where
it.
they keep from the public this information, not because they think people are going to hurl themselves off the Brooklyn Bridge because we're not alone in the universe, but because when this comes out and this information comes out, it means that the sciences already exist so that we can get off oil and gas and coal. And you know what? A Goldman Sachs guy said that's a $600 trillion nut you're cracking right there. $1 trillion. And because if you look at all the commodities trading, the petrodollar system, the utilities, the internal combustion engines, all of that is defunct, extinct stuff, or should be. And so here we are cannibalizing this planet for no good reason, except that there's a handful of folks. And you look at the sort of centralization of wealth and power there is in the world now. It's the most extreme it's ever been in human history right now, right this minute, this instant. So, there's 200 to 300 individuals and corporations that have over half the net worth of the world.
You know the guy in the beginning of your video that says the originalist, David Wilcock? Do you know who that guy is?
Oh, yes, I know who he is.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know that he also thinks that he's Edgar Casey reincarnated? He shows you pictures of
I have
Edgar
no
Casey,
idea. That's news to me.
Edgar Casey's friends and how his friends look like Edgar Casey's friends. And
Really?
You ever watched any of that guy's lectures?
Yeah. I mean, some of the team interviewed him, but I
want to do a little editing. Might want to do a little editing with that one. Not saying that anything else in your documentary is bullshit, but that guy makes my radar detector go off. The evidence that this technology has been suppressed. Is there evidence that like this free energy technology has been
Yes, there's a whole document trail. And one of the things we got some years ago was a demand from the Department of Defense to the FBI that they turn over the secret papers of Nikola Tesla that were stolen. We have this document, and what happened to them, and what the Federation of American Scientists, a very big mainstream organization in Washington that has a national security research project associated with it. 135 patents that have been seized under the national security. One of them, voltaic generator, from sunlight to electricity for electricity, and it had a national security order slapped on it. This mainstream scientific group says, how could that be a threat to national security when a threat is the combination of oil and the petrodollar system? So, this is not a conspiracy theory. There are entities that have conspired. You look at the wealth.
It really is. That is such a...
I think it's really special interest. Fire! You're going to... You know what? Here's the problem. You have to give them. I'm not one of these people saying, oh, well, there are these boogeymen that are doing it. if we're allowing it by our Cheetos and watching Jay Leno, which is fine, but if that's all we're doing, we're not trying to fix it, then obviously the passivity of our politicians.
Enemy destroyer sunk. Off to a cracking start.
Power vacuum. You're going to have these sort of people step. And I think there's a power vacuum that this.
Our team has taken the lead.
And I think that it will continue for as long
information is being distributed more freely and more easily than ever before.
Right.
Yet this is also the age where the government is continuing to attack rights, continuing to slowly but surely restrict our rights and civil liberties, and make it so that if they deem you a threat to the nation in any way, shape, or form, they can essentially detain you. They don't have to do anything legal. They don't have to contact a friend. This is all stuff that's being passed now. That seems to me to point to the fact that they're looking at this. Where's it going? If you look at it on a graph, if you project the future, well, it's going towards some ultimate free information space. And if it gets to that, then it's going to reveal exactly how much fuckery's been going on for all these decades and how much craziness has been going on behind the scenes. And it's going to come to a point right now they're not. You give them your tax dollars, you don't get a receipt, you don't know what the fuck happens. There's a congressional budget meeting, gets together, and the president puts out his plan, and the financial people get involved. But how much access do we actually have as to where your Dr. Stephen Greer's financial records or your tax dollars go? Almost nothing.
Oh, we don't know. And he said one of the problems is that once you get to a project that's eyes only and it's unacknowledged, they're not going to technology exists. So how is it going to check and balance on that?
It's essentially a dictatorship. When it gets to that, it's essentially a dictatorship. It's just dressed up as a democracy, but their ability to act is completely. They have total whatever the fuck they want. They don't have to listen to you.
If we let them.
If we
now,
let
and
them.
then here's the other problem with that. Is that the macro. Well, how free can the market be if there have been decades of confiscation and suppression of these advanced transdimensional energy devices, so humanity free energy devices? And if that's going on, it completely wastes the concept of a free market. So yeah, it's a free market if you want to. But let's not forget that your computer that you think is so cool, you're charging off the grid.
Enemy cruiser sunk.
And so, we really have to wake up to the fact that our society has been held back, retarded, really seriously by this kind of secrecy. And so this secrecy is actually a threat to our continued, not just our liberty, but it's an existential threat to the planet. And we're seeing all these unintended consequences where we stay encamped in the Middle East. And the buzzword in Washington, because of our vital national security interests. Well, that's code for oil. Just forget the BS. That means oil. Because you say, well, what about Israel? Israel has 200 or 300 nuclear weapons. And I lived there for 3 years. Believe me when I tell you, they can take care of this. I mean, if there's an existential threat to them, they can handle it. They don't need Big Brother America there.
But don't they? I mean, don't they get a tremendous amount of funding from us and weapons?
Oh, they get funding, but I'm just saying that's not the reason we're in all those vast areas of the Middle East. It's because of the oil interests.
Of course. Yeah.
And this becomes a question of why? Well, because if you have a device that would fit on the table here that run your house, where you don't have to be on the grid, or your car, put in the boot of your car, and you have those are called zero-point or quantum vacuum electromagnetic generators. Basically, through very high voltage systems, you create a vector into this baseline energy field that it really holds the universe together. And they start talking about the Higgs field and the negative energy of the matter of the universe. But for years, it's been let's get the Castle effect, and we'll get into the arcana of the physics of it. But this was published in mainstream journals. The question is, how do you tap it? And can you? And the answer is yes, and it has been. But they keep suppressing scientists and inventors who come up with it. There's a man that I know who worked at Lawrence Berkeley Labs, and he was using a coiled array around a barium titanate crystal and using very high voltages, certain pulses. He was able to get 10 times more energy out than was going in because the crystalline structure was tapping into this zero-point energy field that is in the fabric of space and time. So there's an enormous amount of power. It's been estimated that every cubic centimeter of space has enough energy on the Earth for a day if you can tap it. So the question becomes, if you can do that, you're not going to need to have a car filled up at a gas station or a utility to Con Ed or whoever it is. And those sort of interests have trumped the technological issues, I believe, can be fixed. It's a strategic issue that's the problem.
I'm going to stop you because I need to know about this. Is this taking place? Is this
it was confiscated that had this happen. Some goons broke into his lab, broke it up into an experiment. They took him. He got a mental hospital.
Battleship sighted.
In the 80s.
Okay, so do we know exactly what he did, and is it reproducible?
Yep. I think
so why has no one reproduced it?
Because you have specialized equipment to do it. What here's getting to the
Our team has taken the lead.
Is that 100% of the proceeds from it are going to go into build a new energy lab. So all this stuff that we're collecting can be done. I think with the intelligence we've gathered in between 1 and 2 years, we will come out with at least a generation 1.0 of these energy systems. Because I have many physicists programs, but you've got to have a properly equipped lab. You've got to have security. You've got to have the whole world watching. This would not be a secret project like this Converse. This would be, it'd be like this, it'd be streamed to all the world on. Because I don't think you can do this secretively.
How come you know about this story? How come you know about this experiment tapping into zero point? But this is not common knowledge amongst nuclear physicists. This is not something that's discussed in the mainstream news. This is not something that you can find information online in any credible source. No one has. It seems to me that if there was an experiment that tapped into such an unbelievably unlimited supply of energy like that, it would be impossible to keep this under wraps. That you would be able to keep the conversation under wraps.
No, that's not true. And in fact, if you go to the website seriousdisclosure.com, there's a portal there to the energy research, and there are thousands of documents of stuff, things that were reported in the media, and then they got confiscated and shut down. But you're asking this question as if academia and the media are operating freely, not under these suppressive behaviors. And I think...
Well, I'm asking the question actually because just the nature of human curiosity and incredibly brilliant, intelligent men that are out there that study energy, I would think that someone would look into this and examine it.
Okay, well there is, and in fact, one of the people that we were funding for a while, before he got threatened, a former CIA director who went down to his SCIF, Secure Communication Intelligence Facility, was an understudy of William S. Bender at the University of Washington.
And he got threatened, and what they said?
In 1974, I think it was 74, he formed a company, and he's a brilliant, one of the most brilliant people I've ever met, and he had systems using electromagnetic energy. And some guys came in, confiscated his equipment, his device, his notes, and everything. And this man's going to very well and stayed at my home. And still works for, under contract, CIA and various groups. He's basically the intelligence community owns his soul. And that he can only do only so much to provide information and bring this out. And, people who think that doesn't happen are living in a very naive world.
This is 40 years ago.
No, that was 40 years ago when his started. After I developed a relationship with him, he checked with his intelligence. They they said, yes, you can work with Dr. Greer, not on the propulsion stuff that flies around the UFO, but just on the energy generation part of this. And so we provided a grant to him through my project, the Orion Project.
So the government limits his ability to do research on specific topics?
Basically told us this, and you have no career at all. And if he had disclosed what he had invented in 1931, he would have been imprisoned. So, and these exist. You can look it up. It's Section 1 of the Patent Law and the National Security Act. These national security orders all the time. So, but who's authorized? You think President Obama these goons were out there this stuff? And so here's this really I mean, he's not like Rambo. I mean, he's an engineer. So he develops this stuff. Okay? And he's terrified. And so then all the chairman circles back around. We have to get hold of him. And we say, look, okay, here's some funds. Do this for us on a generation 1.0 version of this, something. And check with your. They cleared him. About the time he was beginning to put this thing together. Threatened.
Main turret critically
damaged. One of the guys at the
We sank an enemy destroyer. Victory is in sight.
Your children, your grandchildren, if you step out of line with this. So I don't think that, in terms of dealing with this, that you're going to be able to do it under any kind of, where someone's trying to do it quietly, secretly. It's going to have to be in plain sight.
So what you're saying is that several people have tried to do this in the past.
Hundreds.
Every time they do it, they're threatened and stopped from doing it. What specialized pieces of equipment would be necessary to produce this zero-point energy field thing?
Well, first of all, your computer and lights are running on 110 or 220 RF voltage. The voltages involved in these transdimensional physics is in the thousands to millions of volts, but at very low current. And so you have to have special analyzers and generators for that. So, I mean, there is a science to this, and we understand it very, very well, actually. But building up that lab, I mean, we looked into the equipment, just is like $500,000 just to do that. And so what you have to do is...
That seems like nothing. If you're talking about $500,000 that can produce
No, that's
something...
just the equipment. No. There's no building, no personnel, no staff, no nothing. We estimate, we have a budget for about a 2-year program, around $6 million, to put a lab together and put these really brilliant people in it, get the right equipment, and build up these experiments and do real science. But the problem is you have people off on their own doing this that stumble across this phenomenon, and they get shut down or threatened or bought out. Instead of threatened, they'll just be offered money. So a lot of people, Dr. Beard tells the story of a man that had generators, and he was testing it. It was a legitimate over-unity system. And then the guy disappeared. And the next time he saw the guy, he had a Ferrari and an Armani suit, and the guy never had a pot to pee in, as it were. And what we found with this is that a lot of times a lot of people don't believe that happens, and they think that's a conspiracy theory. It isn't a conspiracy theory. And this is why the Federation of American Scientists, when they said, look, there are 5,135 or something like that patents that have been seized, most people don't know that those national security orders can happen outside of the patent process. So even if you're not going the patent route, they can go in there and just seize the damn thing. They use, I mean, it's kind of like the flag and the Bible. Now, you wrap yourself in these things to do all kinds of outrageous behaviors.
Yes.
But, I mean, you can say it's national security, but as this one document from the Federation of American Scientists says, how could a solar voltaic system be a threat to the national security? Mm-hmm. It would be a threat to the special interests that are calling the shots. So the question becomes, who's really calling the shots on these sort of decisions? Is it in the interest of we the people? No. It's in the interest of folks who want to protect their cartels.
What is your take on guys who have come clean before, guys like Dr. Robert Lazar Is that guy full of shit? He's the guy from Area 51 that came back and said that he was back engineering some alien craft. And, very compelling to listen to, very interesting guy. But from what I understand, Dr. Stanton Friedman questioned him and, in fact, called him a fraud and said that some of his educational background was kind of made up.
Right. And here's the problem with any case where you hang it on one person like that. Is very risky, and that's why I've tried to resist that. When we started putting together the people who knew about the nuclear facilities with UFOs coming over, I didn't want one or two, I wanted half a dozen, and that's what we have. The more spectacular the case is, if it hangs on one person, and the other question is, where's the corroboration? So I think that's why we try to focus on that. Now, I will say that the areas out in the Nellis Range, and nobody, by the way, calls it Area 51, but let's just say that because
Groom
it's
Lake.
Pahut Mesa, S4, S3, S12. And actually this National Reconnaissance Office document from the 1990s lists those facilities there properly.
Well, that's after
blackjack control.
They had to apply for additional land. Before that, they denied it entirely.
Right.
They had to apply for additional land because people were getting so close that they could film footage of some of these crafts that they were experimenting on, and that's not bullshit. If you've ever seen, no one knows what those things were, but the way they were moving was extraordinary. They moved unlike any craft that we know. I would assume that if you look at what we're doing today in all different parts of the world with drones, especially these drones that have Hellfire missiles that can be fairly accurate when you're considering that they're being operated by someone halfway across the world.
Right.
That this probably has something to do with what they were working on back then when they're making these things fly around and do all these crazy turns and twists in the sky.
No, because the drones that are being reported are conventional propulsion systems, either jets or what we're talking about are things that are moving in a way that is outside the envelope of normal aerodynamic behavior. In other words, you cannot take something with a normal propeller or jet engine and accelerate it at 20,000 miles per hour and make a right-hand turn. And we have photos and images of these things doing this. So when you're doing that, that's going to, your brains are going to come out of your nose if you're a pilot, and even a conventional object is going to be blown to smithereens by the inertial forces of that kind of turn and deceleration.
I think we may be talking about two different things.
I'm not. I'm talking about the things that have been seen.
But you're talking about things that have been seen in space.
No, I'm talking about things that
at Area 51.
At Area 51, and also all over the world that have been documented moving in this way. Those are moving, and I'm quoting actually General DeBrow.
Action stations.
Conventional aerodynamic system.
I'm not questioning that, but what I am saying is that the things that I've seen as far as videos from Area 51 with these unidentified objects, whatever they were, moving across the sky, they weren't moving that fast. They were moving conventional speed.
Oh, well, that's conventional. So that could be, but I'm talking about the things that I know that have been imaged out there, including a daytime image. Great video.
What is this video that you're showing us?
This is 49 quadcopters in an outdoor formation flight.
Can you see that?
It's pretty badass.
This is these are conventional. You could actually buy these, right? Aren't these?
I'm not sure.
Are they DARPA? Is this DARPA shit?
This is Ars Electronica.
Oh yeah. Well, actually, you can buy little miniature
Pull it down
drones
so
now.
we can see. Yeah. If you've never seen this, what they can do now is really extraordinary. I mean, this is all these drones moving. Or what do you call them? What are they?
These are just like little toys almost.
Yeah, they are.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. But I'm sure a lot of people saw this in the sky and was like, oh my god, what the fuck is that? And called it, UFOs.
Yeah, look how they move. I mean, this is really amazing stuff. They move in a geometric pattern in the sky that mimics galaxies.
Right.
So we know that there's some things that, I mean, these are obviously terrestrial crafts. This is something, look at what they're doing. I mean, that's amazing. This is not UFOs.
Concentrate fire on the enemy
I mean, not
warship.
everything that people see that they don't know what it is a UFO. I mean, it's unidentified to them, and it may be fine. But it's quite amazing. Like this one photograph we have of this triangle that's going like this, and it makes a right-hand turn and it's going enormous.
Photograph or a video?
Photo.
Can we see this somewhere?
It's I don't know where it's going to be in the film, but
it's going to be in the film, but it's available online, isn't it? I mean, it must be.
I don't know.
How long has this been around for?
I'll have to look it up. I mean, I don't have the cut of the film, but this is one. There are a number of these.
But this is a very compelling piece of evidence.
Yes, it's amazing.
Why wouldn't you put that online immediately and say, "Hey, you got to look at this. This is a compelling piece of evidence."
I think it is online somewhere, but I mean, I just can't tell you where. We have thousands of pages on our website. You can if you go to seriousdisclosure.com, you can click through, and there's a whole photo gallery and all kinds of stuff.
Oh, really? Okay, go
I don't know if this
see
particular
cool
one
photos.
is in that photo gallery, but for example, you look at the Vancouver Island photograph of a few years ago. It was in the 80s. Daytime, disc with a dome. It is not Photoshop. It's probably the clearest photograph. And what is that? Well, it's just like these ones from Belgium where you have these photographs of these big triangular objects, and there are photo and video of those matching up with radar cases and jet pilots chasing them. I'm talking about those kind of things. There's actually more than people can imagine that's out there.
Okay, so there's enough of these things where if you look at a big
Many thanks.
Said 5% completely unexplainable, defying the laws of physics, and may possibly be, in his opinion, something that we don't understand.
Right.
Could be possible.
Yeah, that's the one I'm talking about. The other stuff, yeah. Who cares?
What do you think they're doing here?
It's a $64 trillion question.
Yeah.
I think there are a number of things. Number one, I don't think it's new at all. I don't think there's a new phenomenon. There's enough material out there from ancient times that would indicate that these objects have been around since recorded history. I mentioned this earlier in the show. But secondly, I think this stage of our evolution, these civilizations are rather concerned about our potential to destroy and ourselves, but also the fact we're going into space. We have not become peaceful. And in our classified projects, we have things way beyond the International Space Station. So that we could become an existential threat to other planets, potentially. So I think that there is a concern about that. And I think that, there are all these movies, Battle Los Angeles and Independence Day and blah, blah, blah.
Or Avatar, the other way.
And it's such, to me, it's like, okay, yeah. It's like when I went to Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, where they had the blue room that Senator Goldwater tried to get in, and the
Hangar
story.
18, yeah.
Well, it wasn't that. But the thing is that
that's on Hangar 18, Wright-Patterson Air Force Base.
Yeah, but
this is a different thing. Is that where supposedly the Roswell wreckage was set?
Yeah, the Air Material Command, and then when I was there,
that, by the way, very compelling piece of evidence that there might have been something serious going on other than a weather balloon. The fact that two separate planes were used to send this wreckage because in case one of them went down, it was so historically significant. I have that newspaper, the Roswell Daily Record. I have that page on my wall in my house, and I look at it. It's essentially a press release crash disc
before they pulled it back. Yeah.
It's amazing because that's a big statement. You look at all the things they could have been wrong about, like, it could have been something.
Enemy battleship detected.
The fact that they came out and said it's a crashed disc, that had never been done before.
I think some heads rolled over that press release, but because they had to pull it back.
Well, then they did.
Yeah, it kind of looks like a Mylar thing.
It's hilarious. That's quite hilarious. And the government, if you just look at the history of deception that the government has in dealing with the American public from the get-go, and whether it's with the Gulf of Tonkin incident or whether it's what happened with the Contras and the Sandinistas using taxpayer dollars and black ops from selling cocaine in the ghettos of Los Angeles to fund rebel armies. You gotta know they're not telling the truth. Why would they tell the truth? If it was just a weather balloon, would they really put on this fucking dog and pony show where they'd have a general sit there, or was it Colonel, whoever it was, on his knees pointing out all the rest? Look at this. It's just wreckage.
Right. Well, that's what Colonel Corso said. Yeah. That he was. There's no question that this was something very legitimate. And in fact, when Senator Goldwater had McCain's seat before John McCain took it.
Enemy destroyer sighted.
I was at his home some years ago, and he had left the Senate. And he told me, he said,
All stations, reporting the position of a strategic target.
But he was an Air Force.
Does anybody communicate with them? Does anybody have a message from them? Is there anything that they say will be done if we keep fucking around? I mean, is there like any doctrine that they're trying to push on us?
Oh, I don't know if there's any doctrine. I think they're waiting for us to reach, you mentioned this civilization or level 2, where we begin to behave in a halfway civilized way so that we could be quite open in our contact. But I think everyone always says, well, why don't they just land on the White House lawn? And I said, yeah, right.
All stations, reporting the position of a strategic target.
Yeah, right. This is America.
Right,
Fuck
right.
yeah.
Yeah. So, but maybe the White House in Bogota, Colombia. I think the question is
enemy destroyer detected.
Upside down. What do we have to do to be able to go into space and
enemy destroyer sighted
civilizations quite in a way as opposed to episodic way? Mm-hmm. And I think that requires us to begin to behave peacefully. It certainly requires that we but the idea that they're going to land here and enforce, it's like us going to Afghanistan and thinking we're going to impose Jeffersonian democracy on our neighbors. That never going to work. So I think these civilizations are smart enough to know that isn't the way this is going to happen. The humans, but the problem is that I kind of think we're running out of time. Things that should have been fixed on.
Enemy battleship detected.
Living together with this technology so we don't destroy the biosphere. Eliminating poverty.
Problem solved, sir. Fire!
On this planet, 48% of the 7 billion people. A lot of people don't know that. So, I think that until we begin to the good news about all this is that it's fixable, and the means to do that are already in existence. So if they're already in existence, and this science has been studied and suppressed for decades, it means that we as a people have to come together and say, all right, we're going to do this. And I think this is why the sort of, it's used the word activist, or advocacy, part of what we're doing, is that people are always expecting someone else to do this, And I think people have to say, no, each of us have to be responsible for the planet, for our future, and kind of creating a good future. You can't look to Big Brother to do it, and I don't think you should look to the ETs to do it. It's not that they're not going to help us. If we at some point reach a point of being functional as opposed to dysfunctional. But I think the prime movers have to be the people. And my mom's family were some of the original people in the Revolution. Way back, terrible to say, the first prisoner of war with the British. But I think about the fact that here you had this ragtag bunch of people in the American Revolution taking on the most powerful navy and most powerful empire in the world at the time, the British Empire. I think people have to see that within the human spirit, we have the means to do this. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people give too much power to where I don't think it should be provided to these covert groups and these sort of cartels. I think, again, I'm getting back to this idea of empowerment where we have exactly the power we're willing to manifest and no more. But if we're going to sit on our hands and expect someone else to do it, we're in trouble. And there's been too much of that. And there needs to be, I guess, some moral courage here. And this is what sickened me about, the politics of the media and all these scandals like you were talking about that betray us. And, during the Clinton era, the Monica Lewinsky thing, I call it the blowjob heard around the world. That it's just so much nonsense. Whereas these big issues are moral issues, as I see it.
I think if you look at us as a being, as an entity, and our progress in this on this planet, it's so staggering over such a short period of time that I think our minds, our ability to pass down information, all of these things, we're essentially waking up in the middle of history. I mean, as a race of beings, humans, we're waking up in the middle of a massive amount of momentum. As you're born, you are born into a race that is moving in an incredibly powerful direction that it's very hard to stop. And it's also the same animal that just 20,000, 30,000, go back as far as you want, where we were essentially tribal monkey people.
Right.
I mean, that's all of those instincts that allowed us to get to 2013 are all encoded in our genome. All of those instincts, all of those reward systems are all encoded. And all of those reward systems, whether you look back to Napoleon or Genghis Khan, or look at any war figure, any dominator throughout human history, the people in power have always tried to keep in power and suppress others.
Well,
but
they
do. But I think also, if you look at the power of technology to overwhelm everything, including the head spook of the CIA. I mean, he was essentially overwhelmed by email. That's what took him over. I mean, it was the FBI looking into things, but essentially it was all done through electronic means. It was all done through, he was revealed by the very powers that the CIA uses in the first place. They're spies.
The National Security Agency, even better.
The top spy was spied on. It's, in my opinion, when I look at human history, and I look at where just try to extrapolate. When I try to extrapolate,
all stations requesting fire on the designated.
That's why I have such a hard time with the idea of someone creating some zero-point energy thing. Enough people know about what Tesla was working on. Enough people are fascinated by the ideas of I just would think that more government will achieve various arms without all those fires.
But a lot of it's substance.
The ship is on fire!
about this scientist who works in the Space Flight Center, Marshall Space Flight Center in Huntsville. And I think what we
anti-aircraft gun crews are on normal alert.
That is very much outside of government and mainstream corporations and even academia. Because academia, you touch these sort of issues, and it's the end of your career. I'll give you a great story in terms of other institutions. The National Science Foundation is a player in global warming studies and all this kind of stuff. And that director, Bob Carell, and I NASA years ago, and he was very interested in technology, sciences and studies. And I said, look, we need some people at the National Science Foundation.
The ship is on fire!
Let's choose the Earth in our future. But the truth is everyone has to choose. A lot of folks very famous astronomer,
Enemy destroyed. Team is taking the lead.
Published again, right again. Keep going forward. So I think that most people don't realize that this happens every day, and it's this far. So for every in this now series or in this country, there are that have given me the information and even documents and they identify. So there's a lot of fear of either reprisals, but also just liquidation. I have a document in 1953 from the CIA that talked about engaging Disney Studios to make movies about this issue, so that it would be the butt of jokes. And this document talks about the psychological impact. So, people are sort of like, in middle school where you're worried about what are people going to think about me if I say I think this is real? Are you going to lose credibility if you're a doctor or a physicist or an engineer? No. This actually predated that when they were first coming out. And it's hidden in plain sight. Sanitizing. You can't if there's so
anti-aircraft gun crews are on full alert. The ship is on fire!
There's so much
Our victory is in sight.
it's big thing.
Normal alert.
Premiere, but on April 22nd, what if no one has made some sort of a public statement? So you're promising some sort of reveal.
We'll have some press releases.
Major institution, scientists, credible history step forward and say, "Hey, this is something."
Well, we don't know what they're going to say. They're still doing the run on the jet. Okay, let me put that to rest right now.
You touched it.
I've touched it. We have the CAT scans. We have the press release from scientists. The only thing which is the whole.
So the scientists have said that it's absolutely of biological origin. It's not like a werewolf.
No.
It's not a rubber.
No, this we know. This we absolutely know.
Has this damaged your credibility in life? I mean, have you suffered because of this in any way, shape, or form? Of course, in what way? Yeah?
I tell people the worst days in the ER were the 3-year-old that died. So
it's harder than a death. Baby, really?
Yeah. The suffering.
Like in what way?
Horrible stuff. I don't really go into it. I mean, we probably don't have time, but every nasty thing that can be done has been done or attempted. To us, not my family so much as
Enemy battleships sunk.
nastiness of just unbelievable.
Ridicule.
Threats.
People threaten you to what? Stop talking about UFOs?
Problems we have with a lot of security problems. I mean, there's an FBI. Death threats and stuff.
Really? And
Yes.
so you think
Yep.
these death threats are from these people that you're exposing that are in the cabal of this
Well, who knows
international-
where they're coming from? You could just say it
Uh-huh.
was some nut job, like the people who shot up the Sikh temple, or
Right.
you know, our director's family. You know,
Yes.
his father was murdered over this thing, and but you know, I'm just saying that it's a lot easier being an emergency doctor than dealing with this issue when you know it's real and you're dealing with this level of intelligence in the CIA.
Has this affected your career?
Yeah, I've left medicine, not because I had to. No, I mean, but because I had to choose. How do I put this? You only have 24 hours in a day, and you know, at a certain point, I had to decide: I'm either going to continue as a physician, or I'm going to go full steam on this. Now, of course, it was a big sacrifice for my family. I was giving up hundreds of thousands of dollars a year as a doctor to do this for nothing. All right, so it's been difficult. So that's what I'm saying. It's been difficult in every way. But that's not important. I'm not important.
But it
in
isn't.
this.
No, but stop. It is important, and it's a tremendous sacrifice, especially because it's something that you really truly believe in. How do you support yourself now?
Well, I have enough resourcefulness. Before I left medicine, I bought my home, and I saved enough. Okay. And then I have a little bit of income from some books and things, but I mean it's very modest compared to what I would have been making. I probably in the aggregate have given up around somewhere in the neighborhood of $5 to $6 million in income doing this, which I actually don't regret at all because I don't care about it. I care
I hate
about
when people say that. I hate when people say that.
No, I really don't. I mean, this is
Really?
why, now you'll probably strain credulity here, but a former head of Army intelligence approached me in 1992 and offered me the kind of control over a $2 billion fund if I would shut up and close down the disclosure project in CSETI.
Control over a $2 billion fund?
B, with a B.
To do what? What did he want you to do?
He just basically I could do anything with it so long as I would shut
You could just go
shut
big
up.
pimping, giant yacht, Ferrari.
Who knows?
No more Dr. Greer.
And then, when I said, no, I'm not going to do that because I really believe that this was probably I went to my wife and tried to convince her to convince me. And this, this is the kind of nonsense.
Did he want you to work for him, or he just wanted you to
Yes,
shut up?
he wanted me to merge what we were doing with some operation he had, which would have basically subsumed it and co-opted it. And I said no. And he made another run, and I said no. And then about a month after that, all over the internet, it came out that I wasn't even a doctor. Here I am in this emergency department, and a bunch of goons that I'm not even an actual MD. And I'm there, up to my eyeballs in blood and guts. So, they do all kinds of disinformation and psychological warfare stuff with people. But I don't really mind.
I owe you one.
What I'm more concerned about is the people who have the knowledge and responsibility who don't do the right thing. Because there's no way that I can do this by myself. And what I was really gratified to see, and I'm still gratified to see, is are all these people, the military men and women and others who have come forward very courageously, academics like the ones doing the work on this potential humanoid creature, which is a real creature. What it is, we don't know, but it's really a courageous thing for these people to be doing that. The people who led the charge in France to release all those documents I know the backstory to that. And it was very controversial. So, I mean, this is the kind of courage we need to get the truth out and to go forward as a civilization. And so, you can't buy it. You got to have it. You got to manifest it from inside.
Are you getting income from this?
No.
You don't get any income from this?
No. This is, and what's beautiful about Sirius, the movie, is that it was all crowdfunded. No one on my team has taken any funds from it. It's all gone into the production of the movie.
You don't even take a salary?
No. No, it's all gone into the film.
But you list expenses. Like, don't you list like several hundred, like $270,000 or something in expenses that you charge to create this film?
Oh yeah, but that's the production company. Because I'm not a filmmaker.
Right.
And don't ask me to turn on camera.
So the money
we have
goes
people
to this production company, and
yes, and then of course we're gonna, we have to organize the premiere, and of course being crowdfunded, you have to fulfill all the incentives for the crowdfunding. I don't know if you know what crowdfunding
Yeah,
works,
I
but
do.
I want to thank everyone who's listening, by the way,
to do
for the generation.
Kickstarter or something along
Yeah, we
those
did
lines?
Kickstarter and then our own private program, and we have like 4,000 people who have contributed funds to this, which is really a huge number of folks. And by the way, all of you folks who've done that, I just want to say this.
Please.
The premiere is going to be here in Los Angeles on Earth Day, April 22nd, at the LA Live, the Regal LA Live cinemas downtown, the Premier Theater. And so that's what I'm saying. If you want to come, you can kind of sign up and get tickets at SeriousDisclosure.com.
I'm writing that in my calendar right now. I'm going to try to make that. That sounds really fascinating.
Hey, tweet it for us, and you're invited to come. You'll come as my guest.
Please, I'll tweet the shit out of it.
I'd love to have you as my guest if you want.
I would love to go.
We're going to have a red carpet, and we're going to invite some other people here in Hollywood in business. And it's going to be an exciting event. I mean, the theater only holds 809 people, of which about half of those seats are already spoken for. But those of you who want to come, just hop online, and the system is set up so you can do it all digitally. It's not going to be tickets at the door.
Okay. What is this thing that you're doing where you lead people out into the desert and contract with something, ethereal crafts and beings? What is that?
Using these different protocols. And by the way, there's a smartphone and an iPhone app for this that you can get at SeriousDisclosure.com. So that it has all the. It'll actually turn your phone into a magnetometer. It has the tones that were recorded in this crop circle of this weird energy that came into the crop circle.
I can get this on my phone right now?
Yes, you can.
What is it called?
It's called the Contact app. You can go to SeriousDisclosure.com, and there's an icon there, and you can link, and it goes to either the iTunes store or the Android store.
Okay, and tell me what happens when you take these. You'll take anyone out there? Do they have to go through a screening process?
Yeah, there's an app. I mean, it's a course. We do about a week training of people, remote viewing, and the protocols of contact, and sort of the whole concept of it, but also how to look at the night sky. We have satellite charts. We have 4th generation night scopes. We have really good cameras. And, in fact, we're going to be doing one in Colorado in June, in the high desert. We have some land up there.
What is the actual name of this app? Because there's a couple contact apps.
Well, again, you have to go to SeriousDisclosure.com, and there's a link there for it. The name of it will be on the site.
Your own app?
You know what? I have so many irons in the fire. I think it's called ET Contact app.
Oh, ET Contact. So, and explain to me, in this course, what do these people do?
The idea is that we want to teach them. Yep. So.
Okay, so explain to me. Where would someone sign up?
Yeah, and we do these expeditions a few times a year. I used to, there are only about 20 people who are allowed to come now.
20 at a time?
Because I can't handle more than that for a week out in the desert or out in the mountains. But and I just don't have time to do it more often than the 4 or 5 times a year that we do it.
So you essentially do it quarterly?
Mm-hmm. This season. But the schedule is up at SeriousDisclosure.com. There's a place.
Where do you bring these people?
The next one's going to be in the high desert of Colorado. About 8,000.
Enemy battleship detected.
So it's had a lot
jet approaching the disc, how disc...
Probably coming out. Main
turret critically damaged.
And who put this video together? Who made it? Who filmed it? So you...
So, you know,
you have this... You have, I want to make sure that I'm real clear.
Anti-aircraft gun crews are on full alert.
Website, you can see there's a section for the contact information. During one of these expeditions, and it's really amazing.
Is ball lightning...
Anti-aircraft gun crews are on normal alert.
Oh yeah, sure. But that's not... This is clear skies, no way.
Don't they... Doesn't ball lightning have something to do with... there's certain types of visual phenomena that have to do with tectonic plates and pressure and stress.
Piezoelectric.
Yeah, what is that?
No, well, that's very different also. That'll be just sort of a discharge, like an electrical discharge.
You just see it.
And that's from the rocks, and usually it's when there's quartz. The pressure of it and the electromagnetic energy will build up and it will burst out. You see it quite clearly. It's right at the edge of the speed of light because it's kind of coming in and out of this dimension. 30, 40 people who saw this happen. So this happened for 2 years. And
what are you showing up there, Brian? What is that?
And you know, we also train people to always go out with satellite charts. No.
This is your footage?
Alle Stationen brauchen Feuerunterstützung.
It's one of these.
I got one.
Yeah, it'll go 100, 200 miles in space.
Are you trying to contact them? Like, what are you trying to do?
had. So we do the protocol. We play these electronic tones in the space and then have electronic field detectors, various laser detectors, other electromagnetic spectrum. Object fly over like this object here. So what people have to understand is that if you have coming in and out of dimensions, it's not going to necessarily look like it's awesome. It's going to be in various energy forms, and this is the weird sort of effect of most people don't understand that 99% of the time an interstellar civilization doesn't have to be in linear space-time if they have that many things. Area of space. It's very close to this dimension. And so one of the witnesses we have was at a nuclear hot base out back years ago, in the 70s. And there was this object. It was a shape. It was a cylinder. And it flew over what they call the hot, just for hot weapons. And the alarms went on. But he says this thing was not solid like this is, like your box. It was, you could walk right through it, but it was in the shape of a craft. But it was shifted so that the matter was all energy. And of course, matter is energy. So the physics behind this gets into some really arcane stuff, to be honest with the show. But it's this is part of what we're teaching people. Is how do these objects.
Enemy destroyer foundered.
It wasn't.
Can you tell us who the actor was?
No, they're
Shit.
direct front. People who've had these sort of experiences, they don't want to talk about it, because they're afraid of being rude.
Right.
But when it was described to me, I said, "Oh yeah, that's classic." Because if it's not Lockheed or anti-gravity, it's really easy to weirder. gets into the whole question, what are you looking for? So we train people to know kind of what to look for. Aircraft, space objects and junk, satellites, stuff.
So the weird end.
The really cool stuff.
The really cool stuff. You take these people, you bring them out to the high ground, meditation or what have you, and these ships, are they just waiting for someone to like email them?
You know what I think? I think that they've actually been waiting a long time for people to do something.
Do they have to? What I'm saying is, ship, hey, we got some fucking people in the desert. Hey, everybody, get on board. Let's go. How are you getting them to that? How is anybody getting? How is the signal being recognized by them?
Because I'm quite convinced this consciousness thought, and this is the most controversial thing. Before I was a doctor, I was a meditation teacher. Began to realize that really the thing that is most free energy is like mid-1900s, anti-gravity, mid-40s to mid-50s. The science
Main turret critically damaged.
Interface between mind and matter, mind and body, mind and thought and electromagnetic. And that's, to me.
Battleship sunk.
That is the frontier. The final frontier is not space, it's consciousness.
So, you take these people. Spend how many days?
It's usually 6 days. So we go out during the day. It's more teaching. Usually around sunset. And we're out in the stars, making observations. This like 11 or 1200.
Main turret critically damaged. The ship is on fire. Problem solved, sir.
Okay, let me explain that. I'm sorry.
I know the movie.
Yeah, that's Steven Spielberg's movie.
That's how I know this. Most people are probably like me. They don't
Okay, and
know
the fourth kind, because they've had contact on board. The fifth kind.
Battle ends in 5 minutes.
Which is so all these others are passive. You've seen it or bang or what have you. Human.
Anti-aircraft gun crews are on.
Where you're actually making contact. Or where they interact. And my initial research was both cases.
Some anti-aircraft gun crews are on normal alert.
Right, and it signals back and comes over. The more interesting ones are the ones I discovered. Where and they're showing you that there's intent, thought, and their electronics That's really cool stuff.
You ever read Me Young, Carl?
Yes.
What do you think on Carl? You wrote a whole book on the physical manifestation of UFOs through conscious thought.
Yeah, well, I mean, the world is as you are, and the mental flow of consciousness. Reading what he wrote, I think that a lot of people say, well, that means that everything is being manifested by your mind. Well, but in a sense, all of reality is. This is that concept of the Vedic, but I think people see it, and it's interactive. So it's not your imagination doing that. Particularly when you get video.
I don't even think he was necessarily saying it's your imagination.
No, but he was, a lot of people don't understand what he was saying. And I think that he was really talking about some deeper aspect of what is mind.
Right, what is mind, and what effect does consciousness have on physical matter?
Right, it's huge.
Yeah,
it's huge.
And in a sense, understanding the possibilities of contacting something and making something appear.
I agree.
Teach people to do it. I think that if you've got something like that, how is this not like shoes are? How are you not going out there?
Well,
would you be willing to do that with a film?
Well, we did it with we went down to Mexico, to Popo, and we did this. Professional stuff. They ended up completely debunking it, and even though the camera guy and the reporter who was there with me said anyone who sees this will know this is real, and CBS sanitized it. And when I then said, look, you agreed in writing that any footage you get you would share with us if we did this expedition, because we did it on our own expense, the person in charge there said, we're CBS and we're part of a corporation that has billions, and we'll fight you forever. You'll never get this footage.
Why would you need CBS though? It seems like you'd be able to film something like that yourself in really high quality. You don't need their footage.
Well, we do. I mean, we have a certain amount. I don't operate cameras, but we've had volunteers. But we've never had professional crews with us. And I mean, at some point, it'd be nice if we could do this in a professional way.
I have a crew. I have a new show. It's coming out on the Sci-Fi Network.
Oh, really? What's it
It's
called?
called Question Everything. And
oh, good.
One of the things we're going to do, yeah, and one of the things we're going to do is we're going to explore things like UFOs, Bigfoot. I'm going to go to the Pacific Northwest and look for Bigfoot. But I want to, I would love to go with you.
Let's go to the Atacama Desert and see if we can find
Tell
more
me where
of
to
these
go.
beings.
Let's go.
Yeah.
I'd be more than happy to go and bring a professional crew and see if something like this can happen. What kind of success rate do you have doing this?
Well, we've never actually gone out where there hasn't been some kind of a sighting or that been seen by everyone.
Really?
Never.
So it's 100%.
Not every night, and not all the